Professor, we have a BFA with the Americans, we have an RAA with the Australians, and now an RAA with the Japanese. Where is this all headed? We know it's directed against China, kahit ayaw aminin kanina ni Ronald. We know it's all directed at containing China or maybe deterring China. Is this just for deterrence, or, Professor, do you see something beyond deterrence, or yung talagang aggression, or, yun? Prof.
Well, first of all, the reason why we have this Reciprocal Access Agreement with Japan is primarily, as mentioned emphasized by the government, is for humanitarian assistance and risk reduction. Japan,
Prof naman.
Of course, has spent... Yes.
I know it's said there. It's said there.
Official,
that's what they. That's even EDCA is being said na it's for disaster response and all that.
Yeah.
But
well, at this point in time, of course, that's the primary focus, given the fact that in terms of geography, the Philippines and Japan are, of course, located in what we call the Ring of Fire. So these natural disasters that Japan experienced is also experienced in the Philippines. And of course, in terms of humanitarian assistance and risk reduction, the Japanese Self-Defense Force and other civilian agencies have, of course, experience, plus the technology to provide assistance to us.
Pero Prof, at the same time, we also share something with Japan in that we both have disputes with China, us on the West Philippine Sea side, and Japan with Senkaku versus the Chinese. So that's also another way of looking at it.
Yeah, of course. The fact that we're also both treaty allies of the United States.
Right.
Outside of, in fact, the process has begun ever since during the time of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, when Japan became concerned that we are gravitating too closely to the Chinese. That's the time that we started having this dialogue with Japan, what we call the 2+2. You have the defense and, of course, the foreign ministry interacting with their counterparts in the Philippines. So that basically began the process. And, of course, during the time of the late President Benigno Aquino, Ronald, of course, was present there when we had the declaration. This was June 2015. I don't know whether Ronald was with the late President Benigno Aquino in Tokyo when, of course, you have this declaration that created what I call the Philippine-Japan Security Partnership. And, of course, a landmark development happened last April when you have, of course, the formation of the Trilateral Security Summit between Japan, the Philippines, and, of course, the United States in Camp David in Maryland, and also, of course, by President Joe Biden. So, again, this is what happened today is a continuation of that process of ensuring that the creation, a formation of a very vibrant Philippine-Japan security partnership.
Okay.
Professor, mukhang nasa close ako ng panahon na yun wala sa Japan.
Pero di ba, noong time after Scarborough Shoal, that's the time that the Japanese offered yung Coast Guard vessels. This was happened when the late President...
I've talked to some Japanese officials. Sabi nga nila, kasama nga yung humanitarian, di daw sila makapagpadala dito ng mga sundalo to help kapag may mga disaster tayo. Saka tama nga si Professor, yung mga equipment hindi nila basta-basta madala for quick response. Pero itong cooperation natin with them, itong defense cooperation, it includes, ang focus kasi ngayon ng Japan is hybrid warfare na Hindi lang ganyang maritime, hindi lang ganyang mga threats, pati yung cyberspace, lahat-lahat na, pati disinformation, lahat yan, kasama na yan sa mga inaayos nila na cooperation with allies. Kasama na yung US, kasama tayo. Kasama yung mga like-minded countries. So it's just one of the steps.
Isa sana namin na pwedeng i-emphasize sa negosasyon with Japan. Dahil napakaganda o napakagaling ng Japan sa shipbuilding.
Sa tech,
Sana hindi lamang tayo makakuha ng mga bagong mga Coast Guard vessels sa kanila, Sana ay turuan din nila tayo ng technology nila. Dahil yung Japan nag-aaral sa Europe eh. Yung mga disenyo halimbawa, yung kanilang mga boats, yan ay sinasubcontract nila sa France. Tapos kung natutunan na nila, sila na yung gumagawa. Sana meron ding ganung transfer of technology sa atin. Dahil napaka-strategic yung ating Subic Bay para sa shipbuilding. Yan yung isang pwedeng growth corridor ng ating bansa, shipbuilding. Hindi lang dahil kailangan natin, kundi kailangan ng buong reyon. At ang mahalaga dyan ay transfer ng technology.
Ang nagde-develop ng shipbuilding natin, Ronald, is the South Korea.
Yes.
Sila yung partner natin dyan. Oh. Although ang sabi ng mga Japanese naman, they are always willing, they are more than willing, hindi nila sasabihin yun, pero they are more than willing than the Americans to transfer technology. Kung makakapagpadala tayo, meron na tayong mga ganon eh. Pero siguro with this, pwedeng ma-intensify yan. They need a framework eh. Diba? The cooperation needs a framework.
Prof, baka lang sakaling alam po ninyo, kasi I was looking at the VFA we had with the US. I'm wondering how this RAA with Japan compares to the VFA of the US. Kasi sa VFA ng US, may pagkadehado tayo ng kaunti dun sa criminal jurisdiction. For example, I'm looking at Section 5, letter D, na Philippine authorities will, upon request of the US, waive their primary right to exercise jurisdiction, except in cases of particular importance to the Philippines. But ang default is that we waive our right to criminal jurisdiction. That's the US VFA with the Philippines. I'm wondering kung meron tayong ganoon with the Japanese
Hindi ko pa kasi nababasa eh. I was reading it earlier, pero hindi ma-download ng smartphone ko eh. Pero ang significance ito in terms of geography. Kasi any visiting force agreement, status of forces agreement is small.
Yes, sir.
Americans, of course, have been conducting joint exercises with the Philippines. Eventually, we could also send Filipino troops to the United States.
Yes, sir.
But of course, this is a geographic and logistical challenge. It will be very expensive for the armed forces of the Philippines, let's say, to send an entire battalion of, let's say, Army, Marine,
yes, sir,
to conduct joint military exercise with their American counterparts in Guam or Hawaii or California. The same is true with our status of force agreement with Australia. But given the geography, the distance between Japan and the Philippines, it's a practical matter if we could send a battalion or a regiment of Philippine Marines or a Philippine Army contingent to conduct joint exercises with the ground self-defense force. Kasi Okinawa is not very far.
Yeah.
Japan is not very far. And in fact, I think 1 or 2 years ago, when he was still the Army commander, General Romeo Browner was invited by the Ground Self-Defense Force and the United States Army, the United States Army in Japan, for an observer status in a joint U.S. Army, Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force military exercise at Camp Sama. So I still remember General Browner saying, we should send a contingent of Philippine Army troops. Because again, the distance is not very far. And of course, the Philippine Navy now has, of course, strategic transportation capability.
Kasi kung sa US nga naman, alam mo, ibalik bayan box ng mga tropa natin.
Sa Australia, nakakapagpadala tayo. In fact, yung first contingent ng Philippine Air Force natin, nagpunta ngayon sa Darwin, Australia, for military exercise Pitch Black 2024. First time na nagpadala tayo ng Air Force.
Pero ang layo rin ng Australia.
Ngayong araw lang yan. That's a story today.
Ang layo din ng Australia.
Tsaka,
medyo
malayo ang Australia sa bakbakan.
It's also almost halfway across the world.
Pero they're raising their profile in the South China Sea.
They are.
Well, Professor De Castro, what I'd like to know is if are there discussions to provide other countries also, other allies, access to the Philippines, for example, South Korea. May mga ganun bang usapan, Prof?
I haven't heard anything with South Korea, but I heard Canada is interested, France is interested, New Zealand is interested, and even India is interested for a status of forces agreement with the Philippines.
Okay, Professor, I've always been curious why South Korea is not as gung-ho about this, well, is it because there's Japan in the room? Professor.
They're still focused on the threat from their northern neighbor, and that's of course North Korea. And also because of the North Korean security challenge, the South Koreans are balancing the relation between their allies, South Korean allies, the U.S.
And China.
And of course China.
Okay.
And they don't need any more BFA with us kasi they've taken over with K-pop.
At least yung current administration against South Korea is more open, it's more proactive. But of course, the party suffered a major defeat in the last election with the liberals. Also, again, they have to go through this process again of balancing the relation between like-minded countries and, of course, with Japan, with China.
Okay, so South Korea seems to know where its national interests lie, given it's balancing its alliance with the United States. At the same time, it needs to maintain ties with China to maybe hold back North Korea or something like that. Prof, with what's developing here in the Philippines, our RAA with Australia and now with Japan, do you think this is where the Philippine interests lie?
Well, those initiatives are coming from Manila. So, it's an effort that actually began during the time of the late President Benigno Aquino III. Diyan ay tinatawag, I use the term linking spoke together, which became very apparent during the humanitarian assistance risk reduction operation after Typhoon Yolanda.
Oh, so Professor, you're saying that we want them here. The Philippines wants them here.
Yeah. Making at made this leading and of course security partnership.
Okay. Ronald?
Professor, meron pa bang ibang mga ganyang similar agreements in the works?
I think with Canada, India, New Zealand, and even France.
Prof, long shot. What about Taiwan? Malabo, no?
Wala, may one China policy.
May one China policy. Just had to ask that.
Sinabi ni Gibo, Secretary Chodoro, hindi daw pwede.
Yeah, I just had to ask it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although US merong treaty with Taiwan, They have an MDT with Taiwan. Kaya,
it's also called an MDT, a Mutual Defense Treaty, I think.
Yes.
No. The United States doesn't have any MDT with Taiwan. That has been abrogated. When, of course, you have but
nag-one China policy sila.
There's what we call the Taiwan's Relations Act, which is not a treaty. It's a domestic U.S. law that obligates the U.S. government to provide assistance to Taiwan so it could develop its independent capability against China.
Okay. Yes, sir. Sorry, I stand corrected. It was what they also call the MDT is the one that the U.S. has with South Korea pala, not with Taiwan. Okay.
Yeah, not with Taiwan.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, maraming salamat.
Patrick,
yes, Ronald.
Ano nangyari kay Palao, yung kaibigan ni Professor De Castro? Biglang nawala.
Nag-disappear.
Sino to?
Malawi.
Sino?
Talaga si Ronaldo.
Nawala
Dito siya kanina
Communication problem. Communication problem. Baka bukas.
Best friend ni Professor De Castro yun.
Technical problem.
Si Professor Banlawi.
Again, I think he's now based in a university somewhere in Diliman, but definitely not our alma mater.
Somewhere in Diliman.
Meron pa ba? Meron pa ba professor na somewhere in Diliman pero not UP? Meron pa siguro. No?
At
Meron pa rin
Ateneo.
siya.
Ateneo University.
Nang-intriga ba ito?
New era.
Sarap ng mga tao. Eh, talaga.
May Confucius Institute doon eh.
Okay, sige.
Of all the places, doon pa may
Okay, sir. Maraming salamat. International Studies Professor Expert, Professor Renato De Castro. Sir, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay.